Okay. Okay, so welcome to all of you. This is Billy Coaching Live, and I have the pleasure to welcome Greg Williams, a master negotiator and body language expert, today for this interview. Thank you so much, Greg, for joining us today and sharing your wonderful insights with
Well,
us.
you're more than one welcome, Christine, and I hope my insights are going to be wonderful.
Oh yeah, no question. We have no question in the mind. So for those who are, listening, please share your comments and questions as we go. I will fully integrate them as part of our discussion, so that it's most useful for you as usual. So please don't hesitate to do that. Okay, so for those who are joining for the first time, so I'm Christine Billy. I'm an executive coach. I specialize in high performance, and today, as you know, we always want in this live to explore ways to transform so-called problems into so-called solution. I invited Greg to share, how we can make the link between negotiation, body language, and this transformation of problems into solutions. So, we are eager to explore this topic. I want first to introduce properly Greg before I jump into questions. So Greg is a master negotiator and body language expert, has been named top 30 among this expertise and member of Marshall Goldschmidt 100 coaches. So very elitist group of coaches around the world, has been recognized by US Congress as Businessman of the Year. So that's wonderful. And certified speaking professional and C-suite network advisor. Also author of different books, including Negotiating with a Bully and Body Language Secret to Win More Negotiation, among all other books you have published. So welcome again, Greg.
Thank you, Christine.
So my first question for you, I'm curious, how did you become the master negotiator you are today?
Well, it started from the School of Hard Knocks, and what I mean by that was it was me being taught by reality, the situations that I encountered, and I started from the age of 4 years old, almost at five, but it was actually four.
Yeah.
And during that time, I would observe as the result of shining shoes outside of a corner bar in which the area in which I lived, that people would respond different ways based on how I interacted with them. Now, you might say, at 4 years old, you don't know a whole lot of things about the negotiation process. And I didn't. But intuitively, I realized if I smiled at a particular point in time, if I spoke a certain way, that I'd get larger tips for shining the shoes of the people with whom I engaged. I also observed, as the result of watching their body language, when it was appropriate to actually say certain things. Now, once again, I was only 4 years old. But I also had a mother that negotiated for everything. And she taught me at an early age to find value of being able to negotiate to get more of what you want. And as I progressed throughout my childhood and then my professional career, I attended, as you indicated a moment ago, Harvard to learn the negotiation skills of those that negotiated at an international level. And prior to that, I was actually in different environments whereby I had the highest margins in the company I worked for. And the president asked me, "So, what are you doing in your division to get higher margins than anyone else throughout the company?" And I said, "Well, I guess I just negotiate better." So he asked me to start training other staff members to do so. And I did. And once I became a TV news contributor, I was actually critiquing the negotiation strategies and tactics that those in the news were using and observing their body language and critiquing that to indicate exactly how they were negotiating and when they weren't as truthful as they otherwise could have been. Now, there's
Mm.
a long answer to a short question.
That's really impressive. So it feels to me that you were really aware of the this interaction and how to manage almost intuitively from a very early age, and it became you share the intention also afterwards. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. Mm.
Mhm. And you know what? Let's build on to that because all of us have negotiation tendencies within us. It's intuitive.
Mhm.
And the point is, kids are some of the best negotiators that you'll actually find. Why? Because they do not take no as their final answer until they have gone through one step after another to exhaust it. If mommy says no, ask daddy. See if daddy says yes. If daddy says no, you might go back to mommy and say something along the lines of, well, dad was considering what I was saying. So that they're constantly negotiating. As we become adults, we start to fall into society's norms. And sometimes, depending upon your background, you just don't ask because it's impolite to do so. But my motto is you're always negotiating. So, to the degree that you engage in negotiations or not, you're still engaging in negotiations.
Wow, this is wonderful because, yeah, I mean, this is so important. I sense, what you just said because it reminds me of a story where I was, because, in my work, I'm doing workshops and sometime with a sales team. And one woman once said, oh, for me, when I receive a no, I feel excited, you know?
Hmm.
And so for some people, it will be very surprising to hear that, right? So she knew that she was already able to establish a connection with the person, and that was mattering to her, right? So she didn't care about if it was yes or no, but she said, yeah, you know, I established a connection, and now I can get deeper and maybe sell more. So I made the connection in my mind between what you just share and this. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Mhm.
and, let's hang on that word connection for a moment too,
Yeah.
because we can use the degree of connections that we make with someone to
Mhm.
enhance the negotiation process either by
Mhm.
speeding the process up or slowing it down. What do I mean by that? Depending upon how connected you have become or are becoming with someone, you're creating a bond with that person. That
Mhm.
person becomes more amenable to actually listening to your suggestions, your thoughts, your ideas, and people become aligned with you. I'm observing how you're nodding your head right now as I'm speaking. Now, so if you wanted to break that connection, you could either start using different forms of communications. For example, if someone said, oh, that looks good to me, and you wanted to break that subliminal connection, instead of speaking from a visual perspective, that looks good to me, you might say, oh, well, yeah, that sounds kind of good. Now, you've just switched to auditory, and that's a small, minute tactic that people can use when they're negotiating to say, we're still aligned or we're not as aligned as we were a moment ago. And to bring that back in alignment, you might then start speaking again from the same perspective. So the person says that looks good to me. Your response might be, yes, I see what you're saying. So both of you are speaking from a visual perspective at that point in time.
Very
Yeah,
insightful.
connections are definitely something to observe.
Yeah, yeah. And moving forward in the discussion, you have published this book about negotiating with a bully, and I believe, I mean, uh, what and tell me if that's right. What you mean by that is there are some difficult people, in terms of sometimes sounding, let's say, a little bit arrogant, or knowing what they want, but really in a very strict way, and then you feel like there is no margin for, or no flexibility, and you don't know how to approach these people. So what is the best tactic approach when you are faced with someone very opinionate, with clear, strict opinion? Yeah.
Mhm. Well, first of all, you truly need to make, when you're negotiating, a distinction between someone that is using bullying tactics, and I'll explain that in a moment,
Mm.
versus someone that's using tough tactics.
Mm.
There is a difference that needs to be noted because it's the mindset that drives one action versus another.
Mhm.
With a bully will just attempt to lambast you simply
Mhm.
because he or she enjoys doing so.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm going to crush you. This is a I can only win if I make you lose
Mhm.
scenario that you and I are engaged in, as opposed to someone that's a tough negotiator, whereby that person wants to make you feel as though you've earned something, but that person is in reality more aligned with reality. And thus, they know in order to get what they want, they can't be but so harsh. A bully,
Mhm.
on the other hand, doesn't care about how harsh he is. Like I said, he just wants to destroy you, period, and point blank. Now, once you make that distinction between the two demeanors that someone is displaying, you can test to see if someone is really using bullying tactics as opposed to harsh tactics. One
Mm.
way you can do that is to simply say, you know, I feel like you're bullying me. Now notice my actions. Like, no, 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 no. This is not going to continue. I feel like
Mhm.
you're bullying me. And unless we can change the style of negotiations, I think we need to stop here.
Mhm.
Okay. You can two points come to mind right there. Anytime you wish to exit a negotiation or suggest that you may want to exit a negotiation, have a fallback plan. That's to say, leave the door open enough such that you can come back into the negotiation at a point that is advantageous to you. That's number one. Number two, you've set the stage now to say to that individual, this is what I'm sensing from you. Is it real? And the person will respond one way or another. The person may respond via body language. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to come across that way. The person may also literally use the verbiage that I just cited and say, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to come across that way. On the other hand, the person may say nothing, or the person may simply continue his antics. Now, if the latter is the situation, if the person continues his antics, you have more insight into exactly what tactics that person is using, which means that person is probably really trying to bully you. At that point, you can do several things. You can raise the stakes. You've already said, we will not continue in this manner. You can then literally say, okay, I'll tell you what, either I negotiate with someone else or change your tactics. Now you've given a hard stop to that person. Stop
Mhm.
your antics.
Mhm.
And the degree that you suggest that person stop his or her antics depends on the power that you have at that moment in the negotiation.
Mhm.
So if you're at a point where that person really needs what you have, first of all, the person should drop those bullying tactics immediately because he or she is in a dire position, let's say, to get what you want. And that person becomes more amenable to accepting your offers, which then means you have more power in the negotiation also.
Hmm. Okay, so yeah, I think it's very important what you share is that, I mean, this is what I got from what you shared. It's to the clarity about what's going on, ask question or share statement or your feeling about, to gain clarity about what's going on and to verify, okay, the intention. And secondly, be assertive, as we say, right? It's like stating your point and expressing your, what you need to stay in this discussion or in this relationship. So these are very important points. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the point to remember is people will only do to you what you allow them to
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
So you have the power. You have power in negotiation,
Yes.
even if you think it's a little. You have power, and if
Mhm.
you think it's a little, that's
Mhm.
what you have.
Yeah.
You can be in the weakest of positions in a negotiation and think you have a lot of power, and you do. Again, the difference lies in the reality of the perception of the individuals that are negotiating.
Mm. Yeah, I think the point you make around, allowing people to behave in a certain way and to do on yourself. I mean, it's a question of interpretation for sure. People are people, as we say, right? So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
how you receive and interpret and make sense for yourself, which is very important. And on that, you have full control. But I really feel that what you just share about, what are you ready to allow the other, what type of impact you allow them to have on yourself is a very important aspect that we um, we reflect very often on when we do coaching. Yeah. Mm.
Yes, 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 exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned the coaching aspect of interacting with people. To
Mhm.
what degree, even in a negotiation, do you let someone take the lead in
Mm.
order to become self discovery? They discover things that are more impactful, and it becomes just that because they were the arbiters of that discovery. So,
Mm.
in a negotiation, it behooves you sometimes, if you are at loggerheads and the two of you, the two negotiators, cannot come to an agreement, you might simply say, how do you think, or what would you suggest we do at this point to
Mm.
progress the negotiation? And the other person submits a thought, a process, and you either accept it, modify it, or reject it. The
Mhm.
point being, though, in a negotiation, control is perceptive. And if you allow that person, and I say allow because we allow people to do things that they do in a negotiation, if you allow that person to submit his or her thoughts for progressing the negotiation, and you accept that person's views and opinions, again, that person is going to feel a little better about himself in the negotiation, and that gives you leverage. That gives you leverage because that person is now in his or her mind leading the negotiation. And you can use that to see where that person might go from that point. So, like I said, it's good to bring in the coaching aspect of that communications process too.
Yeah, yeah. I really like how you make the link between coaching and negotiation. I really believe that it's a really good tool, coaching, to approach negotiation, because in coaching we are listening and we are asking questions.
Yes,
Open
yes,
question.
yes,
So they are not leading question, they are really in curiosity. And the more you do that, I mean, this is also my experience, the more you do that, the easier it gets, because people share what they have to share. They are happy to share about their needs, their motivation, their value, what comes. And then you just need to reflect on what you just heard, and then say, okay, so if I understand well, you would like this and that. Okay, how do we move forward now with that? And then that makes it pretty easy. So yeah, yeah.
And Christine, let me highlight what you just said because it was supreme. What you
Mhm,
just said was supreme.
mhm,
By asking questions, you gather more information, you gather more insight about that person's demeanor, and that in a negotiation allows you to position yourself one way versus how you may have positioned yourself at that point in time in the negotiation had you not asked that person questions. Now here's the rub to that. The person asking questions in a negotiation is actually the person that's controlling the negotiation. Why is that? It's because, as I said a moment ago, and you highlighted, that person is gathering more information. So, in some cases, you'll observe extremely good negotiators answering a question with a question
mhm,
because they know who's asking the questions that's controlling the negotiation. And it's something that we should always keep in mind in my live sessions before COVID, I would bring people up on the stage and I'd engage in conversation with them. And I said to one woman, so tell me what you'd like to know about me. And she asked a question, well, where were you born? And my response was, is that important to you? She said, yes. And I said, why? She said, oh, I thought it would be a nice little icebreaker. And I said, so why do you think it would be a nice little icebreaker? She said, because it would allow me to get to know you a little better. And I said, and why is getting to know me a little better important? Now, the audience started laughing because they caught on that I was not giving them any information. All I was doing was asking a question to her question. And finally, when the audience started laughing, she said to me, Greg, you're not answering my questions. And my response was, does that bother you?
I
So,
really like that. Yes, it's so nice. Yeah, so nice story. Yes, absolutely. So, and in coaching, we see that very often that people, they come with a topic, an issue, and they say, I would like by the end of the session to have tips or your experience or your advice on this and that. And then, it's about uh, asking a question, building on that, I say, oh, so for example, what will make this advice or tips so important to have for you at the end? And then people, they will go with the flow without necessarily noticing that, you are asking back a question. It was, when you were sharing with me, I'm reflecting on that. Sometimes it's when they ask for tips and advice, or we ask also sometimes for tips and advice, it's more a way to to reassure ourselves that we can find our own way. But yeah, there is a question around that. So I'm curious from your expertise of negotiating. So if you would have someone saying as part of the negotiation, okay, so we are at a certain stage in our discussion, and what I would like to have at the end of this discussion is um, a way to move forward, a very specific way. So, how do you feel this is expressing a specific need for the person?
and let me ask you to paraphrase that question
Yes,
because I caught the tail. I
yeah,
think I missed the tail end. I'm not sure if I caught the
yeah,
tail end or not.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So ask your question, the last part of your question again. I think I
Yes.
missed that.
So what? Yeah, because I was reflecting at the same time. So I was wondering, in your experience, when you are in a negotiation and someone is asking you, okay, by the end of this discussion, I would like to have a very clear perspective. I mean, a very clear step for us. What type of need is a person expressing when they say that?
Well, you and I just went through it, Christine, and I did that intentionally just to get more insight. What's being expressed at that particular point in time can be several things. People can be asking for someone's perspective, the other negotiator's perspective. They can be giving you the guidelines that they wish to move forward with. They can also be seeking information from which to alter their paradigm. What I do is to continuously probe. What will that look like? How might it occur? What happens if we can't reach that agreement? What might we do at that particular point in time? Question after question after question. And if you hear something that you like and feel as though is advantageous to not only your position, but that of the other negotiator, then you can go ahead and bridge whatever gap they may have been between the two of you. And that's yet another way to reach a more amicable outcome in a negotiation.
Yeah, so as we say in coaching, the question helps to reveal the needs below the demand or so that you can align. At some point, you will be able to align because you will identify common needs. Yeah.
Yes, and to that excellent point you just made, you need to understand the needs of people that may not be at the negotiation table that's motivating the other negotiator to adopt the positions and stance that he or she adopts too, because we are all motivated and moved by silent forces in a negotiation at times. I may be, if I'm purchasing a new vehicle, I may be negotiating with the salesperson, but behind that salesperson are mandates that he has to abide by, he or she has to abide by, such that he can't give me the lowest deal that would hurt the company. So he has guidelines also. So you have to understand as much as you possibly can about the total environment, those that are not at the negotiation table, that you can in order to negotiate more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'm curious, what is your best story of negotiation?
There was a client
Yeah.
that will remain unnamed, and the client had three separate divisions
Mhm,
within their organization that was supposed to be negotiating as a team for a compound that another organization had. Well, these three separate divisions had their own goals and reasons as to why they wanted to negotiate in a particular manner. And to make a long story short, they were negotiating more harshly against one another, being inside the same corporation, than they ended up negotiating with the outside entity. And finally, I stepped in, and sometimes in a negotiation where you have multiple parties, you have to have the right players at the table. Meaning, if
mhm,
there's an overall goal, you have to have everyone striving to achieve that overall goal and drop their personal pretenses such that they don't harm the overall opportunity of reaching that goal. We had to have certain people removed from the team in certain divisions such that they could negotiate more effectively, doing so together against the outside entity. That was somewhat challenging because initially there were ties that people had in some of the divisions with folks at the corporate level, that the corporate folks didn't want these people to be replaced. And it was like, okay, here is what will happen. You will not get the best deal that you otherwise could have. You will continue to have inner fighting within the divisions, which will affect the corporation's overall bottom line. Is that what you want to have occur? Now, notice that question posed at the end. Well, no, we don't want that to occur because, yes, from a corporate perspective, we do wish to enhance our bottom line. Well, then, if that's the case, how might you suggest we address this situation given the constraints that
mhm,
the inner fighting is occurring in these divisions?
mm.
And basically, they said, okay, well, get your point. We get your point.
Yeah, and I catch also in this nice story that there are steps, okay, in the negotiation. So, as we often say, it's important to get some yes at some point, and then asking another question just after that, huh? So
Yes,
yeah.
definitely so.
Mm.
And the timing of when you get those yes can make a yes
Mm.
more important, and sometimes getting a no can make a yes more important. So you have the time when you get your yeses and how you address your nos. Do we have any questions from the? I'd be interested to know of any personal situations
Yeah,
that
it's
anyone
okay.
would like insight about.
Don't be shy. It's a good point. So for those who are listening to us, don't be shy. Please share your question, and I will integrate. So no, not at the moment. So yeah,
So,
uh,
Christine, may I just throw something in there then, real fast?
absolutely.
A lot of times people need to understand that they're always negotiating, meaning what they do today impacts tomorrow's opportunities, or less opportunities that they might otherwise get. And thus people should always be in a mindset of, why am I doing what I'm doing? How will it impact whatever I'm trying to achieve as an overall goal? And if they keep that in mind, they would be more mindful of the actions that they engage in. And,
Mm,
and that's a point that really needs to be highlight it. I remember another story, a little sidebar, real fast, of someone that was at a higher level than myself at that time, and the individual telling me, you talk about negotiation, but I think you only talk about it all the time because that's your area of expertise. We are not always negotiating.
Mhm.
And I said, now, here's where diplomacy comes in. And I said, and why are you telling me that? And the response was, so you can alter your perspective. And my response was, well, if I did, what would that mean? I started using questions to gather more information. The point was, the individual did not realize that we were negotiating for how we would interact in the future. And I finally pointed that out to that individual. And the response was, oh, now I get it. So you can understand somebody's mindset first, and you always need to go where their thought process is before you can take them to where you want their thought process to be.
That's a very important point because we I mean, that's my experience also. Sometimes we have a willingness to achieve a specific goal, and we tend to approach it from our mindset, from own words or things like that. And so we forget that alignment, being on the same page, is very important because if there is a gap between the two, that you get a disconnect, you feel it, and then you struggle to move forward because you are not on the same pace or on the same level of or same words. Or so this initial alignment through questioning and observing how your question resonate and what they lead to, you go where the people are. Okay, so you forget about forget about yourself and what you know, what you don't know, what you believe is good or right or wrong, but really go in like you wouldn't know anything, right? So really in pure curiosity helps a lot, no judgment, right? So yeah. Mm.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I always tell people, think about the way you think,
Mhm.
because that will impact how you interact with other individuals. We
Mhm.
all have prejudices at times whereby, because of the way we think our world is, to the degree someone fits into our perception, hey, they stand a better chance of us interacting with them at a more higher level. If they don't fit our perspective of what reality should be, it's like, oh, well, I'm not sure what this person thinks, how this person thinks. But to the degree that you take the time to understand how they think, why they think, the way they think,
Mhm.
you have a better chance of connecting better with them.
Yeah, and this is so interesting. You learn so much when you get interested in understanding the other by sharing my experience. You are in curiosity. Okay, oh, okay. So what is the mindset, and what's important for them? What do I learn about that? So this is
Mhm.
really, opening the mind. So yeah, thank
Yes,
you so
opening the
much for
mind.
sharing that.
Yeah.
So there is another part you are an expert in, and you mentioned already from time to time, which is the body language. So the body language is reflecting how we feel inside, okay? And there are elements we can hide and some we can't. So, can you share with us some examples or stories where you have used your expertise of reading body language to help with negotiating?
Well, I'm going to just highlight exactly how you are
Mhm,
communicating non-verbally right now.
mhm,
And one of the things that I'm noticing is the hand gestures that you're making. When people speak, when
mhm,
they are in a state of comfort,
mhm,
they will tend to speak in a rhythm, and their body language will tend to be in that same rhythm because they are synchronized. Their body language and their words are synchronized.
mhm.
When people start speaking and you'll see them out of rhythm with what they're saying, that's when you should start paying more attention to exactly what they're saying. And here's the other thing. And well, the reason being, there's a disconnect between their body language and what they are saying, their verbiage. Thus, pay attention to someone's body language, because if you notice that being out of sync, there's more than likely something going on in their mind that's causing it to be out of sync.
Mhm.
When you observe body language, understand what is normal for that person. And sometimes that means just having small talk ahead of time, such that you understand how that person uses certain body language gestures when they're speaking. Then you have created the foundation for how they react when they are in a normal environment, when they are not stressed out about anything. You then have something to compare against when all of a sudden they start speaking a little faster than they were before. Their head movement is all over the place, or whatever be the case. Wait a minute, something has changed. What has more than likely changed is the source of motivation that's caused that change to occur. And
Mm,
here's the point about body language and observance:
mm,
we always want to stay in a state of comfort. That's to say, our body always wants to stay in a state of comfort. When a baby has soiled itself, it cries. Why? Because the body is out of that state of comfort. And thus, when our body feels as though it is out of a state of comfort, we will display a gesture, be it rubbing our eye or forehead or whatever. Those are comforting gestures at times. Now, I happen to have an eye irritation right now, which is why I've rubbed my eye a few times. But when you see people touching themselves or things of that nature, they're comforting themselves. Your question to yourself becomes, why are they doing that?
mm,
What just happened to inspire them, to motivate them to do that? And if you observe when they do it and what you were discussing that made them do it, you then have insight into their mind. So if someone says, well, I believe that's a good thing that we can engage in. I really believe. Now, you notice I'm nodding my head, shaking my head, and I'm moving further away. The words are saying one thing, the body is saying something altogether different. And in that particular situation, the body was saying, no, I don't. Even though I was trying to say yes and shaking my head and nodding my head all at the same time, those are just little cues that you can observe in virtual environments. In face-to-face environments, again, you can see when somebody starts to rub their leg, or when they rub their arm, or start rubbing their hands together, or whatever be the case. And that means they are trying to put themselves back into a state of comfort for whatever reason they feel the need to do so.
yeah, yeah. So these are really important tips, and it's about practicing. Certainly, I mean, we can sense all the experience you have when you share these stories. So, it's yeah, it's listening, observing, and then reflecting. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, on the moment, I'm just keeping in mind that how powerful it is to reflect on your day, on what just happened in a negotiation or in a discussion. So because it's fresh in your mind, and so you can reflect, okay, what was my part in it? What is the part of the other? So I don't know if you are doing that. This is something I really like to do, and we don't always take the time to do this self-reflection. So
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Because every negotiation should go through a what I term post mortem. That's to say, you examine exactly what
mm,
occurred in the negotiation. You think about what might have occurred that would have made it better. That's to say, the outcome. And you use that data gathering example as a way to improve your negotiation skills going forward.
mm,
Uh, Husband and wife interact with one another based on how they feel about what has occurred prior to that present interaction.
mm,
So again, you're always negotiating. And did you notice I used the phrase "yeah" a moment ago?
mhm,
Because that's one of your words.
mhm.
And how did you feel when I used the word "yeah"?
Yeah, I actually like, because it resonates. I feel more connected with you. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
okay, there you go. There
So
you go for
I
sure.
have to say I didn't even clearly, I mean, in my mind, it takes some time to the mind to process, but I could feel before my mind could understand what was going on.
And oh boy, I'm glad you said that, because we emit. subliminal messages all day long that people don't necessarily realize has captured
Mhm.
their subconsciousness, and they will act in a particular manner. And truly, if they don't reflect on why they reacted in such a manner, they'll never be cognizant of the fact that, wait a minute, she placed that subliminal thought in my mind and made me react like that. In some cases, people will go along thinking, wow, I really like that person. I'm not exactly sure why, but there's just something about that
Yes.
person that I really like. It's
Yeah.
because of those subliminal thoughts that have been placed in someone's mind. And there's an old model that says people like people that are like themselves.
Mhm.
And thus, to the degree that you're reflective of someone, they see their actions in you, they hear their words in you, and everyone likes themselves. So if they think you are like them, they are more prone to like you too.
Yeah. That's so wonderful what you just shared. I mean, it was, it felt very powerful to me as an example. And in coaching, we see that as well, right? So it's like we we use the same words. We try to avoid to use our own words because then we feel more connected, and we do that intentionally because we want to get close to the person and being in partnership when we talk together. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Wonderful. So wow, the time I'm looking at the clock now. I say, wow, the time, it went like this. So I used to ask, the people in this live, do you have a specific message for the audience, for those who are listening to us today, for this year, and something you would like to share with all of us?
Definitely so.
Hmm.
We advance through life to the degree that we negotiate. To the degree that we negotiate better and or know how to do so, we will advance further in life than we otherwise would have. Thus, my motto, you're always negotiating, is extremely important for the well being of everyone in the world. To
Hmm.
carve out your plight in life, to rise higher in life, please become a better negotiator.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I really like it because this is sometimes something we forget, in the daily life. We do our activities and we forget that we negotiate with ourselves as well, right?
Hmm.
When you plan your day, you decide this is a priority. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to spend 1 hour on this. I'm going to spend half an hour on that. So the first the first thing is that you negotiate with yourself also, and this negotiation with yourself will have a big impact on your day, on your mood, on your achievements, on the relationship as
Oh,
well.
you're absolutely right, Christine. And to that point, I will add, yes, listen to what you say you will do, but
Hmm.
pay more attention to what you actually do,
Yeah.
because that will really tell you in reality what is most important. Because if it's not important, you can say it is, but if you don't do it, reality says it's not important. So be real with yourself. And Christine, may I just offer a suggestion? Uh,
Yes.
for those that wish to learn more about reading body language, of course, you can go to my website and gather all kinds of free information. I
Hmm.
write blog posts that actually indicate how people can negotiate better. I talk about strategies, tips, things of that nature. And I do the same for body language. And speaking of which, do you mind if I hold up my one of my books, my latest two books?
I've started. I didn't finish them yet, but yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, this is Body Language Secrets. I
Yeah.
can't even get it right. To
Yeah.
win more negotiations.
Yes.
And the other one is Negotiating with a Bully.
Yeah.
So understand that in either situation, you can enhance the process by gaining knowledge, and not just knowledge from me. Gain knowledge about the negotiation process and reading body language from as many sources as you possibly can gather. That will definitely allow you to be on a greater path of negotiation skills while reading body language, and it will truly enhance every aspect of your life.
I fully agree with that. I am a big fan of, learning about negotiation and body language. And I'm learning about myself every day, also, in connection with what I'm doing in coaching. And again, I think we first learn also by how we behave ourselves, and then in relationship with others. And so that is great. And I hope we can stay in touch and get additional tips from you in the future. Yeah, so we are at the end already of this first discussion. So thank you so much again for being with us today. Thank you for all of you who were listening. I hope this was useful for you, and as you are moving forward in your week, and that you are gonna dig into these topics and make sense for yourself. And please send us your comments and questions afterwards also. You will have access to this recording, so you can take the time to listen again to some specific pieces. um, and send me your comments on what you would like to see featured in the future. I want to mention the next interview also will be on Monday with Dorothy Simonovich. She's an expert in achieving peak performance and in so-called gestat coaching. So I hope you can also join there. And yeah, if you want to send me your comments, your question, know more about this, lives and what I'm doing, you can also reach to me at billycoaching.com. So saying that, Greg, thank you so much for being there with us. Yeah.
You're more than welcome, Christine. And again, if people do wish to reach me to get those free negotiation tips, they can do it at themasternegotiator.com. That's themasternegotiator.com. And Christine, I know you like to give back to the world as I do.
Mhm.
Thus, if someone wanted to reach me, they could do so at Greg, Greg, at themasternegotiator.com. And thank you for the time that you have put forth, Christine, to improve the lives of those that follow you.
Thank you so much, Greg. So let's see, what we are going to do for the rest of the year. I'm also, planning for, panel discussions. So, let's see what we can do to continue the discussion. I greatly appreciate. So thank you and talk soon.
Sounds good.